anyways, is a technique of what's called font embedding sometimes, but it's directly linking to a font file. So I'll just show you the syntax of how it is. So you define the name of a font family, and then you define where that is. So it can be an OTF file or a TTF file, and it's just hosted on your server. It could also, Firefox 3.5 has a restriction that it has to be hosted on your server, unless you send these HTTP access headers in the header, which allows it to be on another domain. But anyways, you just reference it right there like normally in your font stack. So the implementation in Internet Explorer is basically the same. The only difference is that instead of linking to a TTF file, you link to an EOT. And that EOT is like a font file. It's created with a Windows-only tool called Weft. And it basically wraps the font in this DRM. And that's just how they do it. So the mechanics are more or less the same between IE and everyone else. But you just have to have both files present. So, free fonts, totally cool, go use them. But commercial fonts, not so clear. We're not kind of like settled on how we can use them yet. So I want to get into this. About 2 months ago, there was an interview on Lister Park. Jeffrey Zeldman talked to David Berlow, and he's the president of Font Bureau, which is like this typography foundry conglomerate something. It's a big deal. So Zeldman was like, listen, I want to use your fonts. How can I do that? I want to use them on my website. And Berlow basically said, how about we create a permission table? And that permission table will sit in every font file, and it will kind of say what this can be used for, and you'll buy a font with a specific license, and all those licenses will be bundled into the font file. And that's a cool idea, but of course it would require that to be in all fonts. So every font would have to come out with a new version that includes this permission table, and then all the software that reads them, like browsers and everything else, would need to be updated to handle this. So at very best, it's 3 years out. So this kind of led way to a rant by Mark Pilgrim, Noted Technologies, and it said, fuck the foundries. So he basically was like, listen, the web is the world's biggest platform for typography, and if you guys want to propose solutions that mean that it's another 3 years away, then we're just going to leave you out. And so we're going to go towards free fonts, and commercial fonts are just not going to get any play. So of course this led to a big discussion. This is a thread on Typofile, there's a big thread on Hacker News, big thread on the original post. And I mean, it's understandable because the foundries are afraid of the font file just being taken. You could just download it to your machine and then pirate it essentially. They'd be unprotected sitting out there. And so a number of them kind of lean towards the EOT solution from Microsoft, which has a little bit more protection. But no one's really comfortable with the current proposal. So if everything's kind of with that, what else do we have? So the landscape of font replacement techniques dynamically are these 4 libraries. sIFR, facelift, typeface. Can I just get a raise of hands? Who's used sIFR before? All right, cool. Like facelift or typeface.js? Kufan?
Tried all.
Yeah?
I tried all but not used in the production.
Okay, cool, cool. So I'm going to give an overview of these, kind of give a history, some advantages and disadvantages. Then also talk about performance, talk about licensing. I'm also going to talk about Typekit, which is a new service that was announced 3 weeks ago. So we'll start off with sIFR. sIFR was introduced in late 2004. It was kind of created by Sean Inman, Mark Davidson, Mark Webben. Mark Webben is a Dutch guy, he's like 21. He's now the maintainer of it. They released sIFR version 3.0 a little while ago. You might have seen this, the demo page for sIFR. I think every designer has kind of like take this, stole code, and try to like force it into the page and make it work. So sIFR, the configuration of how you set it up looks like this. And I don't know if you can see it that well, but it's a mix. It's like writing CSS but inside of some JavaScript. But the CSS has some custom rules, and you have to look at the documentation. And you specify the selectors on which you want the styles to apply to, and it's really clunky. If you've done it before, you know what I'm talking about. So what it does is it gets the selectors, and it finds the elements that that represents using a custom CSS selector engine that's built into the library. It also can default to query selector all in newer browsers. So then what happens is it reads all those custom style properties that were in there, and then it just places flash SWFs and SWIFTs all throughout the page, replacing those elements. And hopefully it looks like you want it to. A couple cool tools. sIFR generator can take a file and create the SWIFT that you use. And that's good because honestly it's a real pain in the ass. Also you have to have the needed license for Flash if you want to create it yourself. I'll just point out now all the links I have are available in one page that I'll give the link away at the end. sIFR Vault has 400 fonts available already in the sIFR format. Save you some time, they're all free, so you're cool, I assume. So then that brings us to Facelift. And so Facelift was introduced in August last year. And it's a little bit different because it uses PHP on the back end to create the images. It uses the GD library for imaging, but it can also leverage ImageMagick if you want to do some fancy stuff. So the difference with configuration with Facelift and the other two is that you just style with CSS. So you don't have to specify in some configuration file how you want these things to look. You just write, style it like normally. Then you pass it what selectors you want to pick up. It reads out the style properties using JavaScript's getComputedStyle, which is basically what you would write in CSS. And then it calls the backend generate.php, telling it what we need it to look like, and that returns a ping file, an image file. And it just chucks it in place, sets the alt tag to what the text used to be, hides the old thing, and you're good to go. Typeface.js came out in October of last year. The new technique here is that it uses Canvas and VML to actually make it look like a font. So you style normally, you indicate which elements you want to be replaced by setting a class of typeface-js on them. So it finds them, it reads in the style properties using getComputedStyle. Then there's this JSON representation of the font that you've already created using the generator. And so it just, it's just a bunch of weird looking characters that's in the JSON format, and it is the font more or less. It then takes that, translates that into VML glyphs, which it uses for Internet Explorer, and the canvas element for every other browser. And it works. Modest Playground has 300 fonts already in this format, just like sIFR Vault, so that's a good head start. So then that leads us to Kufan. Kufan came out in February of this year, and it uses the same general technique of typeface.js. There's two big differences. One is that instead of using a selector engine that's built into the library, it leverages kind of whatever you have present. So in this line, in these 7 lines of code, it basically says, if you have Sizzle, which is in the new jQuery, or the old jQuery, or Dojo, or Prototype Moon Tools, or Query Select All, or it falls back on get element by tag name, which all browsers have, that's what it's going to use to find your elements. So those 7 lines of code are equivalent, to the 200 of most of these other ones that had a selector engine built in. It's a really easy way to leverage whatever other, library you're currently using. And then the other big difference is that the JSON representation that Kufan has already been translated into VML paths. So what that means is basically it's pre-optimized for Internet Explorer. Every other browser has to translate it into Canvas, but for IE, it's just so easy, which is really good because IE's JavaScript engine is 10 times slower than everyone else, and that's IE 8. IE 6 obviously is 50 times slower than every other comparable browser. So every optimization for IE is a good thing. Cameron Mall had a really great exploration of Python, where you have a few demo pages. You can take a look at kind of what some of the 5 different fonts look like. And it came out looking good. I mean, he's impressed. A lot of designers have kind of latched onto Python. And if you can't tell, I'm a much bigger fan of Python than I am of Typography.js because of the pre-optimization for IE and the leveraging the selector engine. So let me give you a kind of a matrix comparison. I already went over the technologies, but one of the things that everyone always asks is, can I select the text? And the answer is very. So with sIFR, you can select the text if you start your drag inside the flash element, and then it'll look selected and then you can copy and paste it out. But if you select above the element, above the SWIFT, and then drag down, it won't look selected. And then that's kind of the same deal with facelift, which is in Firefox, if you click above and drag down and copy and paste, you'll get it. But it doesn't look like that image is highlighted. There's no visual affordance telling you that. So it's not optimal. With the other two, they can support everything but Opera, and the developer for Python wants to wait until he gets Opera until he lands the feature. For hover state, they all support it. So like if you do it for links, you can just change the color when you hover over it. Typography.js doesn't include it in core, but someone in the community wrote a patch that'll do it. Printability. All fine, except for sIFR. Flash doesn't print, so you have to just, in your print CSS, you have to say that you need to fall back to the original text that was there and kind of specify that manually. So the licensing, so I'll start with the easy one, facelift. Font file sits on the back end. The images are created on the back end. Font file is not exposed whatsoever. It's safe. It's cool. You have like commercial fonts that you want to use. You don't want to get a web embedding license. Use facelift. The other ones, sIFR. It can be paired with a domain, and that makes founders happy. So someone can't take it from my domain and use it on theirs. And then Python, you can do that. You can pair with a domain. Typeface can't. But if you ask founders if you can use their commercial font with any of these, some of them know about sIFR. Other ones, and most of them are aware of Python, but haven't yet put it into the licenses. So it's really a case of asking them. Also, if it says anything in the license about web embedding, it usually means app font face, but it'll apply to any of these too. So then, as far as the sizes of these, how bloated or big or whatever, are these all the same size except for sIFR, which is a bit bigger. If you were to create any of these font files, how big are those? Because they're going to have to get downloaded to the browser. sIFRs are about half the size of the other two. Pythons are a little smaller than Typeface.js, but they're pretty small. And with minification and gzipping, it's not too much to worry about. So,
question.
Yeah, please.
So I mean, sIFR doesn't work on my iPhone?
Is that what?
sIFR doesn't work on my iPhone?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah,
Never noticed
that's a
that before.
very good point. Yeah, sIFR will not work on an iPhone. The rest of these will. Good call. So it's interesting. I did this presentation 2 months ago at JSConf, JavaScript conference in DC, and a lot has changed. But originally, I had contacted a few type-based designers and asked them, hey, have you considered a licensing agreement for Python? So this is Lucas DeGroot. He developed Calibri and Consulus, which is the new Vista font pack. And he said that we allow embedding with print preview. We want the user to embed subsets, but not the entire font. And if the Python technology could bind to a domain, that would make the price substantially lower. Now I can. So the other guy at House Industries said, we're looking at it, but it's an emerging technology and we have no idea. So in this case, web embedding can cost anywhere from $200 to $1,500. So, it's something that the industry is still working out. This guy, Faulkner, said he's had several discussions with colleagues around the world regarding Drupal, and says he would not allow it, and it would contravene most ULA units. So he didn't like it. At Hoffler and Jones, they created Gotham, which is the typeface used for the Obama campaign. He said that the developer of Drupal, whose name is Simo, actually contacted them and pointed out that Kufan violates their license agreement. So they actually have, Hoffler and Jones has web embedding and sIFR licenses specifically pointed out in the ones. So in performance, what I did is I was working on the homepage of a mobile carrier, Boost Mobile. I was working on their redesign lately. And I took their homepage and we were replacing 120 elements on it and looking at the performance. And I'll just point out, don't ever replace 120 elements. That's a lot. And in this case, I think IE6, it added about 10 to 12 seconds of load time to IE6. In most of these cases, it is horrible. So I would recommend definitely below 50, hopefully below 20 replacements. So sIFR obviously is huge. The big thing about sIFR's performance is that in browsers other than IE, the flash does not instantiate until it's visible. So let's say you have a web page, it's loaded, but below the fold you have more like headlines that you need to replace in a custom font. When you scroll down, there'll be that like second of them copying into the correct font, and that'll happen all the way down. So that's kind of suboptimal. Yeah, that's with sIFR in non-IE browsers. It's Flash's fault. The other ones are sort of comparable. You can see here exactly how Kufan kicks the ass of typeface.js. A lot more performant than IE6 and 7. And so I favor it quite a bit. Facelift, the developer, Corey Mayweather, is actually working on a few improvements, which should probably drop that in half pretty soon. So he's actually adding a super cache plugin and a CSS spread plugin. So currently, for every element we replace with facelift, it creates one image and chucks it in. Every image is an HTTP request. That sucks. With the CSS spread plugin, it just creates one single big image with all the text, and then just uses CSS background positioning and just lines it up and puts it where it needs to be. I've used a beta of that, and it works pretty well.
The image itself is generated dynamically?
Yep. Yeah, it uses GD on the back end. You can also use Image Magic, which I have examples of. The Kufan Simo, the Kufan developer, is focusing on internationalization quite a bit. So he's working on right-to-left text, bidirectional text rotation. He's also working on text stroke, which is in WebKit right now. Yeah. So, where do we net out? So sIFR doesn't instantiate until it's visible in non-IE browsers. Kind of sucks. Configuration is pretty annoying and difficult. But one of my friends actually wrote the jQuery sIFR plugin, and I know that there's at least one other kind of front end to sIFR that kind of auto configures it for you based on your CSS, and that's huge. But it does require Flash, of course. If that's concerned, and the iPhone is certainly very important. It's not great with foreign and special characters, even if you follow the documentation that you have like special stuff. It's like cranky. Yeah.
Actually, I'm glad that you touched on that point. All the presentation that you have is based on from a English language point of view.
Yeah.
All these methods currently does not work for several foreign languages. They do work for some of the Roman-based foreign languages and simple foreign languages, but especially there are several languages where the glyph changes based on its position in related to the nearby glyphs, and that's where it completely fails. It's only the Microsoft has got a scripting engine which takes care of that, and none of those things rely on these things, and that's why all this fails.
What sort of language is that?
I can tell Thai doesn't work, some of the pieces of Arabic it doesn't work,
Yeah.
almost all Indian languages it doesn't work. It's basically, it is what happens is, all these technologies tries to interpret what is there into encoded in the font,
Yep.
but there is a layer of the thing which sits between the font and the operating system, which is called scripting engine, which Microsoft has the one so far I have seen the most perfect for almost all languages. Free type 2 is getting much closer there. So what that does is that particular engine takes the font and based on its context, that glyph, it needs to change and substitute with a different glyph. And all this technology does not rely on the scripting engine. They try to do on their own, and that's where it fails.
Interesting. That's really good to know.
So that's what I tried all those things, and I realized none of them work for the languages I tried.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I've seen a demo of Kufan in doing Arabic, and the glyphs looked fine, but it was not right to left. Kind of ruins it.
It is more than that, because what happens, I first tried it, it is like, if you try very simple words like words that used by say 3-year-old or anything, which are no conjugate, no other thing, they seems to work fine. But the moment you start any adult language, anything which a normal adult in that particular language would use, you really fail miserably.
Yeah. It would be great if they got that. So that's definitely, thanks for bringing that up. So based on all this, I would say that, sIFR is more or less dead. It's been around for 5 years, and seriously, it's been great because we haven't had any other technologies that have done what it does for this long. But now we have quite a few, and just based on comparison, it just doesn't hold up. So for facelift, like I said, it's really good if if the font that you want does not have some sort of web embedding license available. You don't have to worry about licensing really much at all. You just have to buy a license for, I think, the machine that serves it. There's lots of possible effects because it can leverage image magic. So in case you want fire coming through your text, which is awesome. A few other things. You can combine all this, yeah. So it requires PHP, which in this audience is not too big of a problem. But it does require multiple images and HTTP requests, but that's being fixed by the Supercache CSS Spray plugins. The developer has just released a beta of 2.0, which has these features. So once that goes stable, we're all set. The developer is also quite serious about where he wants to take it. Eventually, he wants to not even have a JavaScript front end running on it. It's all kind of computed on the back end, so the load time would be more or less instant. So yay! I'm impressed. Like, I think it's a really good alternative, really good option for using. Typeface.js. Kind of buggy, when I've used it. There was one case where I hadn't included like a letter or a character, and my page needed it. And instead of gracefully airing and being like, hey, this character isn't available, you screwed it up, it just broke in 3 different places, and to debug it was far more effort than it was worth. So I wasn't really impressed. I used to say absent developer. 2 months ago, he was absent for about 3 months. He hadn't responded on his own support forum for quite a while. He's back now. He had a small minor release recently, so can't say that anymore. But the community is pretty quiet, comparable to the other ones. But the biggest part is that he uses the same technology as Kufan, and the quality of the code and the performance is just inferior. So broken. Yeah, they're awesome. So Kufan, it's pre-optimized for IE, which is a really smart decision. So there's great performance. There's a lot of options for. He actually added ligatures like 2 weeks ago. So there's ligature support and a lot of typography tweaking abilities. The developer is really active. He's been pushing code like every other day, more or less. And the community is quick to often submitting patches. So I'm very impressed. I think it's a great option. So, yay. So let me review what typekit is. So you might have heard about this. This was announced about 3 weeks ago. And Typekit aims to basically solve all the problems that I just mentioned. And it comes from Small Batch Incorporated, which is more or less headed by Jeffrey Bean. Jeffrey Bean used to work at AdaptPath, then he went on and founded MeasureMap, and then that was bought by Google, and he worked on the next iteration of Google Analytics. Really smart guy. So the general idea of Typekit is that you just include a single JavaScript file in your page, and it works. It's magic. I don't know, for everyone. So what it will do is create the CSS declarations and reference the font files, the true type for all browsers, but IE and the EOT for all that. Then it has a fallback option if that isn't available. So it'll fall back, and let's say, like potentially giving you an option of sIFR or font to fall back to. The huge thing about Typekit is that the licensing issues of dealing with the foundries and being like, can we use this, are going to be handled by them. So
does that mean on the font face, when you specify EOT or anything, you specify the source, you'll be rather specifying the source of their server?
Yeah.
And
yeah, probably the default configuration is that JavaScript does it all for you, but yeah, the files are going to be hosted by them.
Then do you need to have some kind of a agreement with them that is allowed to be on your domain? Because EOT, when that is created, you need to specify which domain it needs to run.
So,
how they will do it at once? Like they keep on churning up new files?
Yeah, so the fonts will likely be held on a CDN that's controlled by them, and you're requesting them off that CDN, and they have whitelisted your domain to retrieve them. But no one else can unless you pay them, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm just wondering how they may be doing it. Of course, that is their issue, but because every time you create an EOT, at the embedding process, you need to specify the domain. So naturally, if they have an existing copy of that file, your domain is not there, so they probably have to keep on creating that new thing for each domain.
Yeah, I think so. So you're going to basically browse the catalog of fonts that they have that are available to use, and you're like, I want to use that one, I'm going to use it on this domain, and it's magically going to create the EOT, it's going to create the JavaScript that you need to include, and so yeah, every domain is more or less getting their own EOT, and they're just protecting it by domain, yeah. So I mean, this is great because it's kind of all these technologies in the best possible way, more or less.
Wait, what technology does it use?
So it starts off and tries to use app font face. And so that's available in Safari 3.2, Chrome 2, Opera 10, and Firefox 3.5. That's really the only one that we're waiting for.
Which technology you said? EOT?
Font face.
Oh, font face. Okay.
Yeah. And then so it's in all IE browsers because they use EOT. It's been in there. It's IE5. So it'll try and use that. If that doesn't work, then they're going to fall back to something like Coupon or something. But that, I mean, whenever this comes out, let's say it comes out in July or August, I think most Firefox people will move to 3.5 by then. So app font face will be the primary way of doing these things. So let's just say that you wanted to make your own Typekit. This is what I think it would basically be. You have to figure out the licensing issues. That part kind of sucks. But if Typekit supports a font, then you know that Typekit has already had that conversation with that foundry and find that way to satisfy them and to say we're going to do web embedding. So I bet any font that they support, the conversation with that foundry is going to be pretty easy for you to have and to figure out. They're probably going to specify it in their license agreement. It should be easy. So you default to that font face, and you restrict access to the files based on refer to just your domain. You don't want other people hot linking. You don't want other people downloading. Use something like a font available script. So this more or less detects if a font is installed on the machine. So what it does is it creates a span, and just like a hidden span, and adds it to the page. And then it adds in a bunch of characters like just the alphabet. And it says, okay, I want you to be a custom font, let's say Gotham. So it sets it to Gotham, and then it sees how wide it is. And then it says, okay, now I want you to be another font like gobbledygook, some font that doesn't exist, and then it checks how wide it is. Now, if those two widths are the same, then they probably didn't have Gotham, because it's, they're both gobbledygook to the machine. And if they're different, then they probably had it. So this is pretty much the way that you detect to see if a font is installed in the machine.
Also clever.
Yeah. So
I don't know whether it's foolproof.
So this is, so you use something like this to be like, okay, so is app font face working, or do they already have some commercial font installed natively, maybe? And if they don't, then you fall back to just getting a coupon or facelift and checking it in and making that work. And I think, that would work. I'm really excited to see Typekit come out and to see actually what they're really doing. I mean, this is my best guess based on my research, but once it comes out, I expect either me or someone else is going to create an open source version of it, like really soon, that does kind of this, because we need it. So that's more or less it.
Have they talked about pricing yet?
No, they've said, Typekit has said that they're looking at a model that's more or less, you pay by domain and by font. So, but we don't know.
Cheaper than buying the font, probably.
Yeah. There's no numbers have been offered yet, but that's the model. But yeah, if anyone has any more questions, comments, or like experiences with any of this stuff they want to share?
As I shared with you, I think from what I have seen, FontFest seems to be the most complete so far.
Yeah.
Almost works across the languages and toolkit. I wish there was something else, but really, at least Microsoft has done a good job, at least at that level.
Yeah.
How aggressive are font foundries about going after people using that font face without having gotten a license?
We haven't seen it yet. I'm trying to think of any large site that's used that font face yet, and I actually can't think of that. I've only seen it on people's blogs and experiments. So, I plan on using it because a lot of the sites that I've worked on, we have a font that was created for that company, so the licensing talk is talking to the client. I haven't yet seen it, so I expect that they're going to try and control it as much as they can.
With great spiders and
Yeah. But it's really yet to be implemented by a large group of developers. So.
There used to be a competing technology to FontFace, which came out by Bitstream, with one of the foundries that work with Netscape. So they used to have something called Bitstream plugin for IE, but somehow because Netscape never made it, it's basically died. But at that point, there was a equivalent competing technology from Netscape at that point.
That's cool. So there's just like a browser add-in, browser plugin.
That's correct, yeah. So it used to be just like IE has embedded EOT
Yeah.
at FontFace.
Yeah.
Netscape used to have that embedded Bitstream, and only on IE or some other browser you need to download. But unfortunately, Netscape died in that technology.
Right. Yeah, it's always a bummer. I have this conversation with some of my pre-software zealot friends, and they're like, well, the Foundry's business model is too old, and too bad for them. And I understand that. That's the same thing we say about music industry, but I feel bad. Foundries aren't making a lot of money, so it really sucks that we're in this position. But